Hi there, it's Dr. Mira Reisberg from the Children's Book Academy, and I have a lovely book to share with you, Whispers of the Wolf by Pauline Tso. It's a beautiful story that is a mix of contemporary and folkloric in elements, even though it was recently written and published. I'm going to read you the jacket flap here, which also exists as a kind of pitch or a hook. The young boy, named Two Birds, had rescued an abandoned wolf pup, and they had grown up together. But now the wild wolves were calling, and the young wolf yearned to be free. Will Two Birds release his friend back into the wild? So that's a real hook. We want to know what happens. Set 500 years ago among the Pueblo Indians of the desert Southwest, before the arrival of the Spanish, this heartwarming story of an unlikely friendship teaches important lessons about self-esteem, overcoming doubt, and showing respect for all living things. And what it might have been like before the Spanish arrived, as well as what the Pueblos are like today, noting that they are distinct communities, each with its own name, set of customs, stories, and sometimes language. Pauline talks about how she visited those communities for over 10 years and spent time with people there, and just her involvement with the region. And then she ends this by saying, when I was writing this story, I decided to tell of people that could have actually existed rather than mythical figures from traditional tales. I tried to create characters that would reflect the warmth and humor of the people I knew. I tried to use cultural traits that might have been shared among many of the 100+ pueblos that existed pre-contact and which still could resonate today. Using the kind advice of my Pueblo friends, hopefully I have achieved some success in conveying the richness and vibrancy of their living cultures. And this is really important because a lot of books about Native Americans have been about historical Native Americans and don't reflect that there's a vibrant, living Native American life happening today with many, many distinct cultures, many different tribes, many different tribal affiliations, and it's a lot more complex than is often made out to be. Having the preface and the foreword by cultural insiders also helps in that it shows that this is not an exploitative book. This is not a book by a white person who wants to, pretend to be Indigenous or who inadvertently and well-meaningly wants to profit from cultures that have been historically oppressed for hundreds of years. It's a beautiful story using simple language, some onomatopoeia. Over 500 years ago, a Pueblo boy and his grandfather were looking for medicine plants high above their village. Ooh, lay, 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 lay. The distant sounds of a friendly foot race rose from the village. Two Birds, go join the other boys, encouraged his grandfather. Shyly, Two Birds shook his head. I'm always last. His grandfather sighed. There are other reasons to run. So I love how, relational this story is between the boy and his grandfather. And I love how the grandfather is very healthy and vibrant looking. And then here he is, where he discovers the wolf cub, sorry. And here he is snuggling with the cub. And this is the grandfather covering him. Now, Pauline is a master of light and shadow, and you can see that in these chalk pastel illustrations, which may have been done on dark paper, I'm not sure. They kind of have that feel. But you can see how she really focuses our attention on the sleeping boy and the cub right there, and the cub is very young. And we're seeing more relational stuff as another kid joins and wants to know about the cub. I'm not going to give the whole story away, but I want you to pay attention to the limited palette, how it's mostly earth tones, except for the blue sky and green of the landscape. And landscape plays an important role in this story. The language is lovely. The art is beautiful. You can see why this ended up on the cover, because it's just so emotional and relational. Here it is right here in Whispers of the Wolf. I really hope that you will check this book out, because as I mentioned, it's both very beautiful in terms of text, story. It's very meaningful. There are multiple layers in the story that are great for kids to learn about without being didactic or teachy. And then in the end, oh, look at this, isn't this really cool? So much great stuff. Look at that. Isn't that fabulous? So Two Birds is caught up in an ethical dilemma and ultimately has to make the right decision. Another thing that's really fabulous and that's great for educators and also for parents to go deeper into the book is that all of the illustrations is broken down into an explanation of what's going on. Here, page 2021, landscape. The Pueblo people primarily live in the desert southwest around the upper Rio Grande River. Sagebrush, juniper, pinon pine, and rabbit brush or chamisa are among the most common large plants surviving in this arid land. Thunderhead clouds carry the promise of rain. So I hope you liked having a little glimpse at Whispers of the Wolf. And then I'm just going to read the back jacket. Aroo! The wild wolves are howling. Will the young wolf follow their call? And this was published by Wisdom Tales, a small independent press that publishes stories that in some way have some kind of spiritual connection to them. And they have an open submission policy, and I would encourage you to check them out. And also check out this book, and if you can, support Pauline and Wisdom Tales, and use this beautiful book as both a mentor text and also inspiration for the illustration, and also as a great opportunity to talk with kids about contemporary Native American life as well as culture in general. So I hope you enjoyed that. Bye for now.